Hello, what's up YouTube photographer Winston and this tutorial I'm going to be showing you the full in-depth skin retouching and color grading process in Photoshop. And if at all you have always wanted to know about color grading and skin retouching and you don't have Capture One, this is a tutorial for you, and I'm going to be covering each and every step from the very start to the very end. And I know I've been doing so many color grading tutorials, and I want to incorporate all those previous tutorials I've been uploading on this channel into this tutorial, and also the skin retouching bit. And I just hope you learn a thing or two from this very tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. And if at all you find the video helpful, I would request that you hit the like button, because it helps YouTube push and recommend this channel and this video to many people out there, and it's also going to be helping the channel grow in the long run. So I'm just going to come and select my raw file, which is this image that I took in some behind the scenes that I uploaded at the start of this year. So I'll simply right click on it and come to open with then Photoshop 2020, because that's the version I'm using. So I've done some adjustments, so I'm just going to come and reset them to the default. So this is the raw file straight out of camera. So what we want to do, first of all, usually when I'm shooting photos, I shoot them in landscape. So that picture style is usually in landscape. So the very first thing I'm going to do, if at all you don't shoot in RAW, it means you won't be having the option I'm about to show you. So I'm basically going to come to the profile and change it from Adobe Color to landscape, and you can notice that it brings back majority of the colors within this very image, but sometimes it tends to oversaturate the image or the colors in the photo. So what we want to do, just going to come to the saturation first of all, and simply take down the saturation, or simply desaturate it slightly to around -4. Then we're going to be correcting the contrast and lighting issues concerning or regarding this very image. So I'm just going to come and I'm going to take the highlights all the way down, and I'll do the same for my whites, because I feel like they were a little bit on the higher end, and this gets me back the contrast within the image. And I'll come to the contrast and simply pump up the contrast, because I love my images having contrast. Then I'll open up the shadows slightly to around 7. Then I'll add some clarity to around 3. So I'll go straight down to my color mixer option or tool within my camera raw filter, and I'll simply come and play around with these colors. So first of all, let me handle the skin tone under luminous. Luminous is the darkness or brightness of a given color. So I'll simply target the skin tones and simply add contrast by darkening the orange color within the skin tones, and that makes the oranges or the skin have a little bit more of the contrast. Remember, the initial image was a little bit pale, so just want to bring back contrast into the photo. So around -12 we are fine. And I'll come to the background, because I want the background to also pop. So I'll simply take the hues of the yellows towards the green, just like that. And I'll also do the same for my greens, so that they can pop and complement her outfit right here. So after I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is simply coming to the luminous of these two colors, and I'll simply brighten up the greens just by a tiny bit. So you can either darken the greens or even brighten the greens. So I'm just going to do just less of that, and this is the before and after so far for just the camera raw filter. So after I've done that, I'm just going to darken my skin tone a little bit around -14. So after I've done these adjustments, I'm just going to hit open to open the image, but I have set these to sharpen for screen, and the bit depth is 16-bit. The color space is Adobe RGB 98, and the sharpen is for screen, like I said, and the amount is high. So after that, I'm just going to hit OK and hit open to open my image into Photoshop, so that we can do the final touching or the final touch-ups regarding the skin retouching and the final adjustments on this very photo. So this is the image straight from the camera raw filter. So the very first thing I would love to do when it comes to camera raw filter, I'm simply going to crop the image in a desired ratio. So I usually come to my crop tool and I'm just going to crop it in a ratio of 45 or 8 by 10. And when I'm done doing that, I'm just going to simply hit enter to approve my crop settings. So after I've cropped the image, the next thing is going to be basically doing a little bit of the color grading. Let me first of all do a color grading before we can head to the skin retouching, and later on we're going to be also color grading it. I know it's a little bit confusing, but let's first of all do this. So I'm just going to come to adjustments and simply come to my gradient map right here. And with this done, you can notice that the image is going to contain any other random color. So what we want to do, we're just going to come and make sure the gradient icon has been selected, and we are simply going to hide that effect from affecting the overall image. Then after hiding it, with this icon selected, the gradient icon and not the layer mask, you're simply going to come down here and click on this color. So we want to copy this color so that we can get some uniformity within the skin tones of a model. So I'm just going to zoom in because I want to use the face as a reference. So after zooming in by pressing Ctrl or Command plus, I'm just going to double click on this first stop, and as soon as you double click, it is going to open up the color picker dialog box right here, and make sure the sample size is 5 by 5 average. So after doing that, we're just going to sample information. So for example, for the darkest areas, I'm going to sample the darkest skin tone on the face, which is this area. Then I'm going to come and hit OK, and I'm going to click in the middle, create a stop in the middle, and double click on the color, and I'm just going to come and make another stop, which is for the mid-tones or the mid-tone color, and I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to click on the brightest point, then single click on the color option and simply click on the brightest area of the skin tone and simply hit OK. So after I've mapped these colors from the face, I'm just going to come and simply press OK. And now I'm going to activate this overall adjustment layer for the gradient map and simply change it from normal. I'm going to change it all the way down to color. But you can notice that this is affecting the overall image and it looks a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close these properties. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come to the layer mask this time around and press Ctrl I. Then if at all you're using Mac, you can press Command I to invert that effect. Then get the brush tool and make sure it is a soft round brush and make sure the hardness is at 0%. So after you have done this, the mode is normal, opacity and the flat 100%. Make sure you have black and white by simply clicking on these two tiny boxes to reset if at all you have any other random color. And you can switch between black and white by using X on the keyboard. So after you have done that, make sure white is the foreground color. So what we are going to do, we're just going to be painting back the colors onto the skin that we want to color grade. So I'm just going to play around with different sizes of the brush and simply paint on the skin of the model. And you can see it is now going to be color grading the skin, or it is going to make the skin look even and have a very nice and even color at the end of it. Also, I'm just going to also paint on the face of a model just like that, and this is going to make the skin look better and look a little bit more on the even side. So if at all you don't have capture, you can use this technique to get uniform skin color or skin tones for your models or your clients. So I'm just going to be painting, and you have, this is very fast because you don't want to spend a lot of time. So after mapping the colors, you can just drag and drop it on a different image if at all you have a couple of images from a given shoot or a given session. So I'm just going to be painting. I'm basically painting back the colors that I simply mapped within the gradient map into the image. And when I'm done doing that, we're going to be proceeding with this tutorial. And remember, this is not all for the color grading. There is something else I usually apply to the images. So you can see I've painted extras into this photo, and I just want to clean up those extras from those areas that I have really painted that I don't want to be affected by the color grading. So in order to eliminate the extras, simply click X on the keyboard so that black is the foreground color, and you can now come and simply click and drag away the color grading from those extra areas that you have painted on in this very photo. So I'm just going to eliminate those extras. So right now we are done color grading this very image and having uniform skin tones for this model. And this is the before after. This is the before, and this is our after. So right now the skin looks even and it looks uniform. So anything that we're going to do, you can come the opacity if at all you feel like it's too much, and you can come and simply reduce or drop down the opacity of the color grading, because sometimes you don't want it to be too much. So this is the before after, before after. So after you have done that, the next thing is going to be doing our skin retouching, and later on doing the final color grading. So for skin retouching, I'm basically going to first of all create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Alternate Ctrl E on the keyboard. Then if at all you're using Mac, you can use Shift Option Command E to create a stamp visible layer. And we are simply going to come and create another layer by pressing Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. And after doing that, we're just going to come to this layer right here and name it to low frequency, and we're going to name the upper layer to high frequency so that we can do frequency separation. So after we have done this, we are going to come to the low frequency layer and hide the high frequency layer, and simply come to filter, blur, and come down to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, we are going to blur out the details from the skin by simply looking for an area that has prominent skin details within this image. So for this case, I'm just going to take this up to when the details are just starting to disappear from the image. So just going to take it up to when the details are just starting to disappear. That is around 5. That is when I'm just starting to lose out on the details, and simply hit OK. And after I have done that, I'm just going to come back to my high frequency layer. Remember, the low frequency layer contains the colors and the high frequency layer contains the textures. So I'll come to the high frequency layer and now select it and now activate it. Then come to image, and I'm going to come down to apply image. So after coming to apply image, select the low frequency layer and the channel RGB, and the blend mode for a 16-bit image is going to be add. The scale is to offset 0, and I'll turn on the invert option. Then if at all you're working with an 8-bit image, you're going to use low frequency layer, channel RGB, the blend mode as subtract, the scale is to offset 128, opacity at 100%, preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and the invert option is not going to be turned on. But since I'm working with a 16-bit image, I'll just reset those and turn on the invert and simply hit OK. So after I've done this, the next thing is going to be coming the blend mode and changing it from normal and changing it all the way to linear light to reveal back my image. So I'll put these two in a group. After selecting them, I'm pressing Ctrl Command G on the keyboard to group these. So I'll simply hide the high frequency layer and select the low frequency layer and come back and get my mixer brush tool. So you right click on the brushes and select the mixer brush tool. And if at all you don't have it under the brushes, you can find it down here. So for settings, I prefer clean brush, and right here I prefer clean the brush after each and every stroke, the weight of 9%, the load of 75%, the mix at 90%, and the flow of 100%. Make sure sample all layers is not checked. So I'm simply going to start painting or evening out the skin tones using the mixer brush tool, and I'm basically going to be mixing colors that are looking alike within this very image. So you can see mixed colors that are just looking alike so that you can create a harmony or a very smooth transition between or amongst those colors. So if at all I turn on the texture layer, you can see where we have just worked on before, after, before, after. So I just turn this off and continue doing this. So you have to use a relatively small brush depending on the area you're trying to work on within your image. So I'm just going to do this on this very image, reduce on the size, and work on this highlight right there. And the nose area, reduce on the size. And the other thing you have to do, always retouch your images at a distance, because you don't want to distort the original facial structures, and also you want to look at the uneven skin tone transitions from a distance, and it as well helps you to retouch faster. So that is a bonus trick for you. So I'll just be doing this while I'm checking on the progress. So this is the before after. So after I've done this all working on the face, the next thing is going to be working on the rest of the body, and I think I'll just forward this. Hello, now you can see that we're done retouching the skin, and the skin now looks a little bit more on the even side. So this is the before and after so far. So next thing is going to be removing the blemishes from this very image. So in order to remove blemishes, we're simply going to come and select the high frequency layer and simply get our clone stamp tool right there, and we're just going to get rid of these lines or the blemishes. So reduce on the size of the clone stamp tool and make sure the sample is current layer, and simply hold down the option key or the alternate key on the keyboard and left click to sample clean skin and simply draw over that line to eliminate it. So that is how you can use the clone stamp tool to clean up the skin. So I'll just be cleaning up the face, and we're going to be done in a bit because the model really has a better or pretty skin. So I'm just going to clean up these tiny skin imperfections right here. So I'll simply zoom out by pressing Ctrl Command minus, and this is what we have right now. So this is the before and after for just skin retouching. So next thing is going to be the final trick or the final touch-ups on this image. So what I'm going to do basically, I'm going to come to my hue and saturation adjustment layer, and I'll simply come to the red channel right here and come to the lightness and simply take that down, and that is going to make the skin a little bit less desaturated. And I'll simply come back and create another hue and saturation adjustment layer, and I'll simply desaturate it. Remember, this time around I've left it on master up around -77 because I want to whiten the eyes. Press Ctrl I or Command I on the keyboard. That is going to invert the effect, and get the brush tool, the normal brush tool, and simply switch the brush back to white or white as a foreground color. And I'm just going to simply zoom in by pressing Ctrl plus on the keyboard and simply reduce on the size of the brush by using the bracket keys, and simply paint on the eyes to whiten them. So after whitening the eyes, I'm just going to add one more final step to the skin tone of the model. So I'm just going to create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard, or you can use Shift Alternate Ctrl E on the keyboard. Then after doing that, I'm just going to come back to the camera raw filter and do one last thing to the skin of the model. So remember, I want to add contrast to the skin tone and make it a little bit more pronounced. So I'm just going to come to my color mixer tool and come to the luminance of the oranges and simply take that down. Then I'll simply come back to my contrast right here and add some tiny bit of contrast to the image, and that makes the image better and look good. So I'm just going to come and simply hit OK. Then we're going to do some little things to the image to spice it up by coming to selective color and simply coming to the reds and select blacks rather, and simply darken the blacks just like that around 2. 2 looks okay. Then we want to add that nice glow or shine to the model. So just going to come to my curves adjustment layer and come to the brightest area and simply click and drag this up to when the image is brightening up, just like that. And after brightening it up, simply close this and double click on this curves adjustment layer, and it's going to open up our layer style dialog box and set the blend mode to gray, and we want to eliminate the shine from the shadow area. So I'm just going to come right here and click and drag this. So you left click and hold down and drag up to when you're looking at the highlights. So the highlights are now pronounced and they look great, but the transition is a little bit harsh. So I'm just going to come and hold down the alternate key on the keyboard, or if at all you're using Mac, you can hold the option key and simply split this to fine tune the image and create a nice and smooth transition between the highlights, just like that. So I'm just going to split this a little bit, and that looks a little bit too much, so I just keep on fine tuning and simply come back and press OK. So I can reset this, or I can reduce on the opacity if at all I feel like it is too much. So I'm just going to reduce on the opacity of that glow or shine that we have just added to the image. So this is the before and after, but it is affecting the overall image. So I'll simply press on this layer mask and press Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. And with the brush tool, I'm just going to paint in the areas that I want to have that shine on the skin. So I'm just going to paint on the highlights, and that is going to enhance or add that shine to the model's skin, just like that. So just add the shine on the nose area, right on the forehead area. So basically what we are doing, we are basically dodging and burning the image in this case. So right now, after we have done that, the next thing is going to be saving this very image. I feel like it is too much. Up to 48 is fine. Before, after. So in order to save the image, you are simply going to come to File, Export, and come to Export As, because we want to save the image that won't change in color after saving it or posting or printing it. So just come to Export As. So when you come to Export As, it's going to open up the Export As dialog box or window right here. Then we're going to come to the quality and make sure 100% is saved, or the maximum quality, and the format is JPEG. Resample, we are going to set it to by cubic sharper right here, and make sure the color space is set to convert to sRGB, and also simply check or tick this option that says embed color profile. So after we have done these two things, it means that the photo won't change in color after we have been able to save it or print it. So after this, the image is going to load in this preview window, and when it is done loading, we are going to see the image appearing in this window or this dialog box. And after, simply hit export in order to export your image. So this is it for this video, and if at all you have loved this, don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe this channel. If at all you have been watching and you're not subscribed yet to this channel, Ronix from Ronix Photography, thank you for watching. I'll see you in yet more amazing tutorials, and don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.